We're going to talk about the TPP and this trade agreement and how very specifically it affects agriculture, because quite frankly that is what our region's all about, and that is one of the main concerns that we have or interests in TPP. So we'll be talking about that. Secondly, we're going to be talking about the really, I consider to be explosive new developments this morning, in that Kevin McCarthy, who was set to be nominated as the new Speaker of the House, basically has said, I'm not going to do it. Nah, I'm stepping down. I want to remain in the second position, leadership position, but no, he's not taking on the other one. So that has really sent some shockwaves across, and as my guest who's here to talk about it with me, Patrick McBurney, says, wow, that's kind of interesting, kind of exciting, kind of opens up some new doors. So we'll be able to talk about that, and we want to invite your calls as well. But now, if you haven't heard, and it's quite possible that you haven't because it just happened within the last couple of hours, Kevin McCarthy, who is Republican, second position of leadership, was going to be nominated today. That's what most people thought, for the Speaker of the House position, as John Boehner has already stepped down, said that he will step aside as of October 30th. Well, Kevin McCarthy came out publicly and said, hey, I don't want that job. I am stepping away from it. My name is not going to be considered. So, wow, some really interesting developments. So here to talk about it with me is Patrick McBurney. Patrick is involved in the Republican Party here locally. He's the guy that really put together the Republican Club. Obviously, he's been around in Republican circles for some time. So we're going to talk about this with Patrick. I also want to encourage you, if you have opinions, thoughts, whatever, about what is developing in Washington, D.C. and in Congress, to join our conversation. That phone number, 547-8726. So we'll just start with that. Patrick, what was your thought when you heard this?
I kind of have to tell you, honestly, I was kind of elated. I don't have anything against Mr. McCarthy, and I didn't have anything against Speaker Boehner, but I just wanted to see some change, and I didn't feel that elevating the majority leader was going to make a dramatic change in how the Republican Party operates in the House of Representatives. So to hear that Kevin McCarthy has decided to step down, I think is encouraging to me. And there are a number of reasons why that may be. It may be that legitimately he feels, as he stated in his comments to the House caucus, that he doesn't feel that he can unite the party, by being elected Speaker. But more likely is that as these private consultations have gone on, he has concluded that he does not have enough votes to get to 218 when the public vote occurs, and he doesn't want to put the party in it. Well, nobody's going to put the party in a position that when you actually take the official vote, that you don't know what the outcome's going to be.
Right.
So,
oh boy, that's yeah. They don't want to do that.
So knowing that he doesn't have the votes, I think he chose to step down. There's another consideration that back in 1998, when Newt Gingrich stepped down, there was some moral impropriety going on with Speaker Gingrich. And the person who was challenging him, who was chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, is Bob Livingston, also had, moral complications. And what Bob Livingston did after he got up on the floor of the House and says, well, I'm not going to run. I'm not going to run for Speaker. Mm-hmm. And so that's how we ended up with, I believe, Dennis Hastert, who was then Speaker for many years after that. So this is really an interesting situation. You have Daniel Webster, who is one of the candidates, Jason Chaffetz from Utah, who's another one of the candidates. But what the question is that will other candidates emerge? And then there's another possibility, is that will Speaker Boehner, who is Speaker now, will he remain as Speaker, instead of stepping down at the end of October like he previously said, will he remain as Speaker as long as there's a vacuum here and Congress can't act? Or at least the Republican caucus can't act, and I think that that is a possibility that raises its head, because you know, from one perspective, it may very well be that, you know, he's the only person who can be Speaker right now. If they can't find somebody, and that includes somebody outside of the U.S. Congress who could be elected the Speaker. But I think that, you know, that would take a very extraordinary individual and a very extraordinary set of circumstances for that to happen, for the House to not elect one of their own to the position.
Got another opinion in there. So,
well, when I say I don't have anything against Speaker Boehner, I mean I don't have anything personally against him. I don't think he should have gotten elected Speaker, but Congressman Mulvaney from South Carolina, basically, who's one of the leaders of the Liberty Caucus, voted for Boehner because there wasn't really any alternative. And he issued a press release in January that I reviewed before coming on the show today, where he basically talks about why there was no alternative offered to Boehner when they had their private deliberations following the elections in November of 14. And so basically, no one stood up to stand for the job. And basically, John Boehner was elected more or less by default. And those people who said, "Well, I don't support him," they went along and voted for him anyway. And so, yeah, I tend to agree. I think Congress should have used the power of the purse a little bit more proactively than they did. They shouldn't have passed that Cromnibus bill back in 2014, which basically took away any leverage that they might have over the administration. So I don't necessarily disagree with the gentleman, but I don't have anything personally against Mr. McCarthy or Mr. Boehner. I don't think they're bad people, but I don't think that they should be in those positions anymore. And I'm glad that Speaker Boehner's decided to step down. So.
But what do we do in the meantime, though? What about that vacuum that there is?
Nature
Boehner,
of war is a vacuum. There will be
Boehner
someone.
is the leader, but he has basically no power. He is lame duck right now.
That's true, but you know, I'm confident that something is going to emerge here. I mean, you know, will Paul Ryan, you know, will he may very well be the one person in Congress who has the ability to unite the conference. And this is a job that a lot of people are passing on. You know, normally if you were in a position to get elected Speaker of the House, you know, I mean, normally that's thought of as being a pretty good gig. You're third in line to the presidency of the United States. But given the difficulties in dealing with the president, given the fact that people don't feel that they'll be able to appease for example, the caller who just called in, he has certain things as a Republican voter that he expected Congress to do that they haven't done. And the next speaker knows that there is a party of people who has these expectations.
Right.
And he is faced with the fact that I don't want that job because I'm very limited in my ability to accomplish any of those things.
Yeah.
And so, you know, will Paul Ryan reconsider now that we have a situation where Mr. McCarthy, who looked like the odds-on favorite to be the next speaker, has taken himself out of the race? Well, that's one possibility that may emerge. We just have to give it a little time to see what develops.
We're going to take a break here. We certainly want to hear more of your opinions, as that's kind of what's flying right now, our opinions, because there's very little actual fact that's going on out there. So we'll be back in just a moment here on Meet in the Middle. All right, so a true conservative. Well, that's what people want, and I think that most Republicans, being from a conservative point of view, would like to see a person in that spot.
Well, I'm going to run because I already have a job.
Do you? Oh, come on! They drafted you. See, again,
No,
they can select
saying
someone who is not in Congress. So it could be some kind of a Republican statesman who.
But I can't really think of anybody off the top of my head that you know that you could pull out from outside of Congress to go into that position and be Speaker.
What about Eric Cantor?
Well, you know, I mean, you're that's a political non-starter in my opinion. I mean, you know, he was defeated in his own district by Dave Bratt because people didn't view him as quote unquote being a true conservative.
Okay, all right, okay, yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. Yeah, we're going to.
I mean, you know, and basically asking Eric Cantor to be Speaker is like you know, John Boehner might as well remain Speaker if you're going to put Eric Cantor in. I mean, what you're hearing is the frustration of people who have supported Republican candidates, whether they call themselves Republicans or Independents, and have certain expectations. One of which is that, and maybe those expectations are overpromised in the last election, you know. But the fact of the matter is that we want Congress to as a Republican, I want Congress to not spend more money than we actually take in.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that's possible anymore, given the size of the national debt, I don't know. But I mean, that's an expectation I have. I don't want, you know, I want the administration to enforce our immigration laws, and I would like to one, have some idea of who's in this country. I mean, generally speaking, as a conservative, I had a fairly moderate view on immigration reform until all of a sudden we had people, you know, kind of rushing our border, and I understand that they're coming from Guatemala, that they're children, you know, but the fact of the matter is that they could just come over the border, and there was nothing that we seemingly could do about it. That we seem, the United States, the world's most powerful nation, is impotent when it comes to people coming to our border. There's nothing that we seem to be able to do. It disturbed me.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact of the matter is that the administration seemed to take a very nonchalant view and said, well, you know, okay, these people came to the United States, they didn't come here legally, you know, well, we're just going to let them come here. And at some point you have to say, wait a second, we need to control our borders, we need to control immigration. And what I think a lot of people in Congress who take a more conservative view towards immigration reform, it may very well be that that Senate bill is great, okay? But what people want to see before you, what I think conservative Republicans want to see before you start implementing that kind of reform, is they want to see secure borders first.
Okay, but I don't understand why we couldn't have engaged in these kinds of conversations. If you pick the topic of immigration, why couldn't we have the hearings? Why couldn't we have the bills proposed? Why couldn't we have people responding to them? But other than this Senate proposal that was created in a bipartisan way by 8 people, which a lot of people felt was pretty much the best proposal that has come about so far, went nowhere. There is nothing that prevented us from having this immigration discussion and proposals in Congress right now. Nothing has got in the way of that. But we didn't have any conversation, except for people on the outside speaking in, you know, news conferences or whatever.
And maybe that is certainly a failure of Speaker Boehner's leadership, and we didn't have those kinds of conversations, or that we didn't have a real proposal sent to the White House that the president would most likely veto.
Well, to me, we don't have any compromise whatsoever. And in order to accomplish anything on any issue that faces us today, we have to have some level of compromise. Immigration will take a compromise. There's no way that everything that you want, for example, could be implemented. There's no way that everything that I want, there's no one way.
Well, that may very well be true, but I do want to have a secure border, and I think that most Americans do want to have a secure border in the sense that
I cannot disagree with that.
Yeah.
Of course we want a secure border.
But it seems that there is an inability in the political class to at least address that. You know, I mean, the issue as to whether or not, you know, how you deport people, who can remain in the country, birthright, citizenship, and all those other issues, I think that those are distractions from the fact that our border is porous.
Okay, well, I have read this Senate proposal because I was really quite curious about what is out there that is a possible starting point. And there were multiple provisions in this Senate bill that was proposed by 8 people on both sides of the aisle about securing our borders and applying additional resources to it. And it's out there. Solutions are there if we are willing to get together and agree to them.
Well, I think what's going to happen is people are kind of tired of seeing guns flopping, and they want to see, you know,
Action.
They want to see action because.
Okay, what does action mean? What does that
when
mean?
they start building and taking tangible, visible steps to secure the border.
Okay, so let's pass legislation to do that then. I have no, I mean, that's great.
Here's a political problem, though, okay, is that there are interests in both parties who are perfectly content with the status quo and don't want to change the status quo, okay?
Ooh,
The fact of the matter is that you have, well, let's say the Chamber of Commerce wing of the GOP that, you know, is perfectly content with the current situation, okay? You have people in the Democratic Party who want open borders because they feel that that benefits them politically in the long run. That
No,
is,
nobody wants open borders.
No,
I don't.
I tend to believe that.
I can't agree with that at all.
Well, I think that that would be the president's position.
Oh.
There's
no,
plenty
no,
of evidence
no.
to suggest that there are people that would favor something very similar to that.
Okay, we have another caller. Let's go ahead and see what.
Respectfully, I disagree, Christine.
Okay,
You know,
we are respectful of each other, but we do disagree. Of course we do. Hey, how you doing today? Hey, I agree with you totally, but the other part of that is that the Constitution, just like the Bible, quite frankly, can be interpreted in about 100 different ways. So what the Constitution means to you, or how you take a view of a particular paragraph, might be different than other people's. I mean, we've definitely seen this in issues that have come up come up into the Supreme Court. Obviously, they are interpreting what the Constitution says, and people just don't agree.
Well, part of the problem is that many of the interpretations that are taking place are vastly different than how it has traditionally been interpreted over the bulk of the life of this country. And they're basically going, in my opinion, they're going out the window with it, and they're going onto an off-ramp that has never been gone before. And people are looking around and going, wait a minute. You know, they can say that they're interpreting, but a lot of experts are saying you're taking this in a direction that it was never intended, and I happen to agree. That was a very good point by the previous caller.
Welcome back to Meet in the Middle. I'm Christine Brown. My guest today is Patrick McBurney, very involved in the local Republican scene. He's recently helps establish the Republican Club, which is a chance once a month to get together and in kind of a social setting and hear Republicans talk. They've had a number of really interesting folks so far. The next one coming up, which is actually Halloween morning, is, and these are at Country Gentleman at 8 o'clock in the morning, will be Bill Bryant, who is a Republican candidate for governor of the state of Washington. So, Patrick, as we're kind of summing things up today, what do you think is going to happen next? I know when you first heard about this, you said you were actually kind of giddy.
Well, yeah, I mean, because it's great to live in interesting times.
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
What do I think will happen next? I think that that there's a delay in this process, and what they're going to try to do is see if another candidate is going to emerge. I don't think that Daniel Webster, although he was Speaker of the Florida State House, is the guy, because he's a much more, on paper, much more moderate candidate than maybe Speaker Boehner, at least as far as some of the positions that he's taken. So, he would have to convince the conservatives that he would be able to push forward the agenda that they want to put forward, which, falls in lines with the expectations of many people who have called the show to say, this is what we want. We want, defeat Obamacare, you're supposed to go to Congress to do this, cut spending, et cetera, et cetera. So you're going to need to have a candidate that has to emerge. Does Paul Ryan at this particular point, even though he doesn't want this job because he feels like it's a suicide mission, I think
it has significant implications for his career, and he looks forward. I mean, he's already run for vice president. I mean, I think the guy wants to be president, and will this help in that in the long run?
I think that if you're Paul Ryan, you're going to say this is going to help me become president of the United States at some point. So
you're saying it does help him?
It does not.
Oh, okay, yeah. So
I have a bit of a cold. I got to work on that. But I think that You know, stop saying you know.
A lot's going to go on behind the scenes right
exactly.
now.
So it's possible that someone from outside of Congress could emerge, but what happens and how the situation works is that, let's just say that I decide that I want to be Speaker, okay? What I have to start doing is getting on the phone and talking to the individual members, if I'm with this person outside of Congress, and saying, this is what my vision is for why I want to be Speaker, this is how I'm going to conduct the speakership, this is how I think that we can reconnect with our voters, and I'm going to have to articulate a vision to each of the members. And, you know, if you want to be Speaker, that's what you have to do.
Yeah. All right, we got to go here. We'll be back in just a moment. Thanks a lot.